In my opinion, all-mahogany guitars are the sweethearts of the vintage guitar market. They sound like nothing else, and they don't command the absurdly high prices that some other vintage guitars do. On today's Acoustic Tuesday show, you'll be hearing 3 different vintage all-mahogany Martins, born before the year 1950. In fact, one of these guitars is almost 100 years old. These guitars sound awesome, but more importantly, you're going to get a true apples-to-apples comparison on how body size affects the tone of an acoustic guitar. So let's go ahead and hop in the time machine and check out these vintage beauties. Hey TAC family, this is episode 293 of the Acoustic Tuesday show, a show packed full of inspiration and fun designed to help you get more fulfillment, progress, and joy from your acoustic guitar journey. Throughout today's episode, as always, I'll be keeping you in the loop with some acoustic news you can use, including a metronome pep talk that actually makes you feel good, a new band called the Arnimals, and much, much more. Plus, we're going to head to Italy to check out a Guitarsenal from one of our very own Acoustic Tuesday viewers. But first, let's check out some vintage mahogany Martins from my Guitarsenal. First up on the list is this 1946 0017. I'm going to tell you how I got this guitar and why I got this guitar, but first, let's do a little bit of a spec rundown. As I mentioned in the intro, this is all mahogany. Mahogany top, mahogany back, and sides. The neck is mahogany. We've got a rosewood fingerboard, a rosewood bridge, 1 11/16 at the nut, and this guitar is, quite honestly, a player's grade vintage guitar. It's been refinished obnoxiously. The inside is painted black for some reason. The tuners are non-original, and I don't even know what tuners these are. Maybe these are Schallers. I don't know. You can see the original tuner footprints on the back of the headstock, but all in all, this guitar is very much non-original, but it sounds pretty darn awesome. So how did I get this guitar? Well, I was working at Music Villa. I saw this guitar come in used and didn't even think twice. I've always wanted a 00 vintage mahogany Martin, and this one just checked all the boxes. And the price was pretty sweet as well. More on that in a moment, but let's listen to it again. So why is this guitar in my Guitarsenal? To be 100% honest with you, full transparency, price. When I saw the price on this guitar, I didn't even think twice. I think it was around $1,300 for a 1946 0017. Yeah, I didn't even think twice. Now, that's no small chunk of change, but for this guitar, I was like, I can deal with it being not original. And as I mentioned, it is very much not original. The tuners are bizarre, the refinish is poorly done, and the inside is painted all black. But the tone, after I got this guitar, I found a niche for it. It's great in alternate tunings because it gives you this full sound, it's comfortable to play, and it really seems to accentuate those lower tunings, this beautiful deep resonance. I love playing it in like Dadgad or Open D. It just has a lot to offer, and it's really comfortable to play. The neck isn't like a chunky V-neck. It's actually kind of more of a soft V, if I was to call it a specific shape, and it just plays great. So I got it for the price, but lo and behold, it's actually a really important part of my Guitarsenal and a great compositional guitar. When I say that, I like to compose tunes on this guitar because it's comfortable to play and it has this beautiful, pillowy, beefy sound. Next up, a 1935 Martin Single 017. This guitar has a hell of a story, and it's Tony Furtado's fault that I purchased this guitar. But first, let's hear it. Before I get into the story behind this guitar, a quick little spec rundown. As you guessed, mahogany top, mahogany back and sides, mahogany neck, rosewood bridge, rosewood fingerboard, inch and 11/16 bone nut, StewMac vintage tuners, and no, it's not all original, but man, this thing gives everything you want from a small-bodied all-mahogany guitar. It's light as a feather, and man, does it have projection. Okay, so how did I get this guitar? Well, the story goes back to Tony Furtado playing a show here in Bozeman. He was playing it live from the Divide, one of my favorite venues here in Bozeman. It's like a small 50-seat venue. Think of it as almost like a house concert in a way. And it's the first time I saw Tony Furtado play close up. And we had been communicating prior to his show, and he actually I don't know what the circumstances were. He was staying at a hotel in town, but he's like, hey, if you want to, play my guitar overnight, you can go ahead and take it and play it. And I was like, what? So I did, and he has a single 017. I can't remember the exact year, but I fell in love with the guitar. And I marked in my brain, if I ever had a chance to purchase a single O all-mahogany guitar of any sort of vintage, I was going to hop at the chance. And it was very serendipitous, I think that's the right phrase here, that one came in used to Music Villa. And as soon as it came in, my buddy Ross texted me, he said, you will not believe what ended up in the showroom. And he sent me a picture of this single 017, although it did not look like this, because this guitar has undergone quite significant amount of repairs. There was, I believe, a top crack in it. There was side cracks. The finish was destroyed all over the back and sides. The back was cracked. I believe it was actually missing some pieces on the side as well. Not in good shape. Very close to unplayable. It went to a luthier here in town. Shout out Marcus Engstrom, one of the best luthiers I've ever had the joy of working with. He did a full-on revamp, refinished the back and sides, patched all the holes, made it extremely playable, gave it a neck reset, all the classic things you need done to an older guitar. Came back to Music Villa. I snapped at it. I could not let this one go. I had a pickup installed in it, and for a while, this was my main stage guitar. It sounds great plugged in, which I know is kind of what's the word? Let's just say that a lot of folks don't want to install a pickup in a vintage guitar, but I wanted to play it. I purchased it to play, and I'm so happy I did because I love playing this guitar. It plays like butter. The neck is chunky as hell. It's actually pretty thin down by the nut, but as you get towards the body, the neck starts to get pretty thick, and I find it extremely comfortable to play. It has a unique voice. It has a powerful voice, and one that I've absolutely loved to play on stage with and also sing along with. It's a great guitar to accompany vocals.
Wish I was a mole in the ground. I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, oh, I would root this mountain down. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Tempy wants a $9 shawl. Tempy wants a $9 shawl. Come over the hill all with a $40 bill. Baby, where you been so long?
So why is this guitar in my Guitarsenal? Well, I kind of mentioned, I just wanted it. And I didn't realize I was going to put it to use so much in the flat picking world. I had no intentions on flat picking this guitar. In fact, I purchased it under the impression that this was going to be my main finger picking guitar. And it's a great finger picker, but man, it flat picks like a dream. It does have a shorter scale length, so the strings feel a little bit noodly under a flat pick, but man, it just has this wonderful articulation and clarity that I really didn't expect, and I attribute that to the smaller body size. For some reason, these smaller body sizes offer great volume and great punch that is a great a match for flat picking. So why I got this guitar? Kind of to be a jack of all trades, but the flat picking was a bonus. And I'm so happy I got it. I treasure this instrument. It is a joy to play. Every time I pick it up, I'm like, man, I'm so happy that this guitar is in my Guitarsenal. It's a great sonic weapon.
Oh, and nothing coming down. I don't know why I don't move on from this old town. The snows are falling in the east, oh, and the winter's setting in. Years and changes say to me, can't go home again. So sing me a song that's not too long and take me home tonight, till around the bend to see again the ridge road gravel and the coal line.
Next up is a guitar that's almost 100 years old, a 1926 Martin Size 2 17. This guitar has an awesome story, and man, if it could speak, the stories it would likely tell. But first, let's give it a listen. The spec rundown on this guitar is very similar to the others with only a few exceptions, namely the body size. It's a size 2, so it's smaller than a single O. It does join the body at the 12th fret, rather the neck joins the body at the 12th fret, so you get a different sonic palette altogether. Mahogany top, mahogany back and sides, rosewood bridge, rosewood fingerboard, an 1 7/8 at the nut, so a much wider string spacing. The neck, while it is a V neck, it's very shallow, almost stunningly shallow. When you look at this guitar and when it was made, 1926, you would expect a huge chunky neck. Not the case. It's actually pretty uniform in terms of its profile, and like I said, it's like a shallow V. It's like a hard V, but much more narrow than I would expect, much less deep than I would expect. I mentioned already 1 7/8 at the nut, slotted headstock, original tuners on this. They work fantastic. The only thing that's non-original, to the best of my knowledge, was the bridge. It was replaced. But man, what a treat. This guitar, just every time I pick it up, I just feel like I'm stepping back in time. So how did I get this guitar? Well, as with most of the stories I've told you so far, I was working at Music Villa. I feel like all the stories start out like that. I was working at Music Villa. This guitar came in on consignment. As soon as I saw it, I was smitten. And then when I played it, I was even more smitten. I fell in love with this guitar. The responsiveness from this instrument is undeniable. And as soon as I strummed my first chord on it, that was it. I had made the decision this guitar was coming home with me. So it came home with me, and it's one of my favorite fingerpickers of all time. why is this guitar in my Guitarsenal? Well, I already kind of let the cat out of the bag. It's responsiveness. I barely have to touch the strings on this guitar, and it is just giving sound. It's one of the loudest guitars in my Guitarsenal, and it's also the smallest guitar in my Guitarsenal. It's extremely comfortable to play, and anytime I do any sort of blues, ragtime fingerpicking, this is a go-to instrument. Number one, because of the sound, but number two, the way that the nut width is, 1 7/8", it gives me plenty of room for more complicated voicings, and the string spread over the sound hole, closer to the bridge, is it's nice and wide. So for fingerstyle, it's very comfortable to play, and there's no other guitar in my Guitarsenal that sounds like this. It's dry, it's woody, it's responsive, and it just freely offers sound. I mean, even just talking with this guitar in my lap, it's vibrating, and it is just light as a feather. This guitar is probably under 3 pounds, maybe. I haven't weighed it, but it is extremely light and just a sweetheart of a guitar to play. I also should mention that this is a very geeky thing. This guitar has the original bar frets. Very geeky, but there's something when you look down and you see those thick frets, it's just it's like taking a time machine back to when this guitar was made. Very geeky, but I figured I'd mention it. Of the 3 guitars I played today, which one's your favorite? Which one do you like the sound of the most? The 1926 size 217, the 1935 single 017, or the 1948 0017? I feel like I called it a 46 earlier. It's a 1948. I'm confusing it with another guitar that I have from 1956. We'll get to that one on a later show. That's not the point. Which of these 3 guitars is your favorite? And do you happen to like vintage mahogany Martins? If so, let me know in the comments below. And one more thing, the interesting thing here is that all of these guitars are all mahogany. So you had a pretty interesting view, interesting comparison to how body size actually affects guitar tone. You have a very small guitar, a single, and a double. And again, of the 3, which was your favorite? And were you stunned by any of the guitars with maybe what you expected versus what you got? Let me know in the comments below. And as you're typing, I'm going to get things ready. I'm going to sit down at the desk and we'll do a little acoustic news you can use. First up on your acoustic news you can use docket is a story from David and the Devil. Now that name may seem familiar because I mentioned him on the Resonator Guitarists episode. Well, he posted something on Instagram that I found necessary to share. You know, we all have people in our guitar journey that give us the courage to play, that tell us, hey, you can do this. Hey, you sound good. Hey, you're improving. Well, David and the Devil acknowledged these very pivotal people in his guitar journey. Here's what he had to say. In Milton Keynes for Audi training this week. Went to visit my adopted parents after so long. I once worked for a recovery company in Yorkshire who sold to a company down in Milton Keynes, and instead of taking redundancy, I could keep my job but had to go live down in Milton Keynes. So off I went, hoping keeping a job would be a better option than starting again. Martin was a recovery driver at the recovery company I worked at, and him and his family took me in for a few years after I crashed my car looking for a place to stay one night down here. They treated me like one of their own. They encouraged me to play guitar in this living room all the time when I wasn't working. They also encouraged me to eventually play live for the first time. After a year or so, I had this guitar made and delivered to their home, which was about 9 years ago now from Mule Resonator Guitars. If it wasn't for these 2 lovely people, I wouldn't have ever had the courage or skills to play music in front of people, let alone just be a better person because of them. So glad to see them both after so long. So cool. Nothing really more to say about that other than to just pause and reflect on maybe the folks that have influenced you, that have given you the courage to continue playing, whether that's live or just continue progressing within your guitar journey. And speaking of progressing in your guitar journey, you know, the metronome is almost like a curse word. It just conjures up these feelings, these thoughts of sitting alone in a stark white room with one table and a metronome just click, 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 click. But it's a really beneficial tool, all that aside. And Tony Rice is known for his timing, was known for his timing. And he has a very interesting perspective on the metronome and how timing and rhythm work within a band. And I think it's rather refreshing. And I know you need to hear it. Here it is.
There's a lot of bands that want to adhere to that real strict metronomic sound. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, if you could take apart an album, say like the Manzanita album, where you got myself and Sam Bush and Todd Phillips, or Ricky Skaggs as the primary rhythm section. If you could really get analytical about that and break it down into beats, mm-hmm. It would startle you as to how that varies in terms of constant speeding up, slowing down. It's constant. But still, to the listener, it's perceived as almost a pulse.
Okay, to round out this first dose of acoustic news you can use is a late addition. An artist that I just stumbled upon that you need to hear. You may have already heard her, but chances are likely not. She's new to me, and I literally just added her to my show notes prior to sitting down and filming this episode. Bella White. Don't know where she came from. Don't know anything about her. I just know that you need to hear her voice. You need to hear her songwriting. Here she is playing the song, The Way I Ought to Go. Wow. Strap your shoes on because they will go flying off. Strap your socks on because they will go flying off your feet. Here she is.
I could scream at the top of my voice, still I would not be heard. And I know in the morning where you'll find me, staring at the ceiling on my own, while my mama fell in love in East Virginia. Well, maybe Richmond's the way I ought to go.
Go ahead and grab your guitar. Now it's time to see what the TAC family is working on today. Every single week within Tony's Acoustic Challenge, the TAC family rotates through the 5 essential skills. Your fluency in these 5 essential skills helps you learn songs faster. On Mondays, the TAC fam does a technique challenge, Tuesdays a guitar lick challenge, Wednesdays an improvisation challenge, Thursdays a rhythm guitar challenge, and Fridays a chord transition challenge. Today is Tuesday. The TAC fam is working on a guitar lick, and here it is. Your Tuesday TAC guitar lick challenge is named My Baby's Gone because that's the song it comes from. Robert Belfour's My Baby's Gone. Here's how it sounds. Just a wonderful, self-perpetuating, very Mississippi Hill Country blues riff. Notice I said riff and not lick. We'll get to that in a moment. TAC family, if you want to learn this note for note, please log in. This is your daily challenge. Click on Start Challenge. That'll take you to the teaching video. Once you're done with that, move to the play along video. Adjust it to a speed that's comfortable for you, and then don't forget to click on that tab icon in the lower right-hand corner so you can have the tab and the video right next to one another. Okay, so this lick, this riff, what's it good for? Well, first of all, let's talk about riffs versus lick. This is my definition. This is not a widely known definition. This is how I separate the two. A lick is a single musical phrase that works great in a guitar solo. It works great as a fill. A riff has a little bit more rhythmic momentum, something that you can repeat, something that really encompasses the sound of a chord. So when a certain chord is going on, you can play a riff, and it kind of gives you the same chord information, but in a more interesting way. And that's why I call this particular series of notes a riff. I almost said lick again. So if I'm playing an E chord, let's say I'm playing a blues in E. That's one way to play through an E chord. That's fine, it's interesting, it's cool. But if you want to vary things up a little bit, you can introduce a riff, a repeated rhythmic phrase that insinuates the chord. Enter the lick or the riff that you're working on today. Right, you can repeat that time and time again, and it contains that information of the chord. In this instance, actually an E7 chord. I strum that chord, you can kind of hear all the pieces, and then I play the riff, and you can kind of hear that E7 chord speak through that. So in essence, using this in a musical context, you can actually substitute strumming or fingerpicking a chord for this riff. Case in point, let me go ahead and play through a 12-bar blues. What I'll do is I'll play 2 bars of an E, just kind of standard, and then I'll move to this riff, and then I'll move to an A7. So you can kind of hear how it frames itself quite nicely in the blues setting. Here's how that sounds. And I kind of just repeated the first half there, coming back to the E, but I think you get my drift. This is, sometimes these riffs can just take the place of a chord and still give you the same information, but again, in a more interesting way. Just something to think about as you're learning things on your own, as you're learning this. Always ask yourself, can I classify this as a riff? And again, that classification means you can repeat it, and it kind of hints at the chord. It contains that chord information that is so necessary when you're playing rhythm guitar. Now, one quick thing I want to mention before we get to the show is tension. You holding tension, me holding tension. It affects your playing significantly. And the reason I bring it up with this particular riff is that the looser your picking hand is, the more success you will have with this riff. Because it involves some strumming and a mix of thumb action as well, the looser, more relaxed your picking hand is, the more success you will have. As you're working through these notes, you can see that my hand's just kind of falling into the strings. That's what I want you to try and cultivate. Of course with this, but with other finger picking things that you may be doing. The more tense you are, the more rigid and stiff your playing sounds, and ultimately you can get caught up on the strings because you are so rigid and stiff. So try your best to loosen up. And I want to call attention to my polka dots here. I'm not turning into a polka dotted individual, but I have experienced holding a lot of tension in my picking hand, and I'm doing everything I can to mitigate it, because I know for a fact the more relaxed I am, the better and smoother I play. So this is from a sports physical therapist. I had some cupping done on my forearms, and I got to tell you, holy smokes, did it make a difference. I'm not saying that you should go run out and get that done. What I am saying is that the more tension you hold over time can result in injury. I don't want you to have to do this. I don't want you to have to turn into a polka-dotted person. So try your best to relax, relieve that tension, take a deep breath, and approach those strings in a more calm, relaxed fashion. Dig out your passports. It's time to head to Italy to see a Guitarsenal from one of our very own Acoustic Tuesday viewers. This is Paolo Gambarelli, also known as Paolo Ironleg, from Reggio Emilia, Italy. Here's what he's got in his Guitarsenal: a 2006 Martin DX1R, which was a gift from his wife, a 2017 Taylor GS Mini, a 1976 Liuteria Mizzi Modena, a 2021 Martin Road Series 0013E, a 2022 Seagull S6 Original that he bought in Toronto, a 70s Mandolino Mizzi, a 2015 Echo ukulele. Last January, he goes on to say this, last January we were in isolation due to COVID, and I showed my wife your wonderful YouTube channel. So she gifted me the t-shirt for our 33rd wedding anniversary. My very first guitar, a Pedro Martinez Cadaquez, my pronunciation is awful, model Valencia of 1976. It's too beat up for the photo, but it still sounds good. I lent it to my friend of Toronto named Tony, hoping that he too can follow your wonderful channel and start his own guitar journey. Paulo, thank you so much for sharing your Guitarsenal. Thank you for giving us a little personal insight into your guitar journey. And if you want to be like Paulo and you're thinking to yourself, I want to get my Guitarsenal featured on the Acoustic Tuesday show. Please do so. It's super easy. Everything you need is in the description below. There's a link to purchase a t-shirt, and then also there's a link to upload your photo when you wear your t-shirt amongst all of your guitars. You can describe your guitars, tell a little bit of a couple stories, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories, and I'll feature your Guitarsenal on an upcoming Acoustic Tuesday episode. Side note, I want you to know that those Guitarsenal t-shirts that you purchase, 100% of the proceeds from those Guitarsenal t-shirts goes to Guitars for Vets. And I think that's just awesome because by sharing your Guitarsenal, by proclaiming your guitar geekness, you're also helping a cause that is truly life-changing. So just keep that in mind when you go to purchase those Guitarsenal shirts. There's a lot of options there, but all the proceeds from those shirts is a donation directly to Guitars for Vets because that's an organization I believe in wholeheartedly. Moving on to your second dose of acoustic news you can use. And first up is somebody... I wrote in my notes, guitar multitasking at its best. You know, sometimes you sit down and you want to play guitar, and it's fun. And then you want to sit down and sing with the guitar, and that's fun, but oftentimes the wheels come off, right? You open your mouth, and all of a sudden your strumming hand stops working, your fretting hand doesn't know what to do. Well, this individual took it about 14 steps further. This individual is playing guitar and also playing the drums while riding a bike. Don't know how he came up with this, but he did, and you need to see it. If you've watched the show for any amount of time, you know that I love tattoos. I love getting tattooed. I love the art of tattooing. I love the community of tattooing and tattooers. And I was actually, this is pretty ironic. I was sitting in the chair getting tattooed, and I was, you know, scrolling through Instagram, and I saw that Rhett Shull, and an awesome guitar YouTuber, just got his first tattoo. So I wanted to share it with you and say, congratulations, Rhett. It's an awesome piece. And a shout out to the artist. Rhett's post says this: first tattoo yesterday, thanks to @Wes_art_ for such an amazing piece. If you're in the Denver area, look him up. The piece is awesome, and congrats, Rhett, on your first tattoo. It will likely be the first of many. They seem to be rather addicting, or maybe I just have an addictive personality. I don't know. I love them. Rhett, I love your piece. It just looks awesome. So keep it up. Maybe get another one or two in the next coming months. Really great stuff. Next up, this is a new band you need to know about. Have you ever heard of the Arnimals? Well, if you haven't, you're about to. You know, there's this thing on the internet. I'm going to show how much of a technological Luddite I am. I think that's the right word. There's this thing called deep fake where you can put someone's face on a famous video or a famous movie. Well, an individual did this with the Animals playing House of the Rising Sun. And the face that they superimposed on the band The Animals is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they also dubbed in his voice. It's absolutely hilarious, and you need to just behold. You need to see the sights, you need to hear the sounds, and making their debut, here are the Arnimals.
There is a house in New Orleans, they call the rising sun, and it's been a ruin of many a poor boy. In God I know I won.
And continuing the theme of bizarre internet guitar-related things, a lot of talk about AI lately. Writing music, doing art, writing poetry, doing math problems, yada yada, AI this, chat, GPTQ, FQZ that. I have no idea. I kind of stay out of that. But I found something that was very interesting that involves AI. From the account on Instagram, Guitar, aptly named, they asked AI to design guitars inspired by film directors. Check out the results here. We've got a guitar inspired by Stanley Kubrick. We've got Guillermo del Toro. We've got Tim Burton, my personal favorite, and you could probably see why. We've got Hayao Miyazaki. I'm unfamiliar, obviously, with some of these directors. We've got Wes Anderson. We've got the Duffer Brothers. And I just thought it was kind of interesting to say, hey, if these filmmakers design guitars, what would they look like? I don't know. The results are kind of cool. It's kind of a fun little trivia thing, fun little kind of off-the-wall thing. I don't know. I'm just trying to be hip with the kids and the AI, right? Anyways, I think on those artificial intelligent notes, I don't know if I can say intelligent. On those notes, I think it's a great time to wrap up the Acoustic Tuesday show for today. But first, let's take a sneak peek into next week. And next week is part 1 of a series of banjo-episodes. Yes, episodes dedicated to the banjo. You're thinking to yourself, Tone. Acoustic Tuesday is a guitar-related show. Where the hell are you coming up with this banjo stuff? There's a lot of commonalities between the banjo and the guitar, and that's what these banjo-episodes are going to do for you. Now, next week is part 1, where I'm going to share with you some inexpensive banjos. Okay, there's been a lot of questions from guitar players, from TAC family members saying, hey, I kind of like the sound of banjo. Kind of curious. I'd love to try one out. What's a great starting point? Well, that's what next week's episode is about. Some inexpensive banjos that you can get your hands on to start, well, trying out the banjo. And you'll be surprised at how the banjo connects to guitar. I know I said that before, but we're going to kick off the Banjo-episode Part 1 with banjos and getting one in your hands. And then Part 2 of the Banjo-episode series, which might be 3 parts, I'm not sure yet. Part 2 is going to go over how the banjo is connected to guitar and how you can intertwine the two. It's going to be a really fun couple of weeks. That's coming up next week on the Acoustic Tuesday show. Remember, you can catch Acoustic Tuesday every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Before I let you go for today, please do remember this. Your guitar success, however you define it for yourself, is directly related to your guitar routine. So please invest the time in developing your guitar routine and make sure to have fun every single day that you play. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your valuable time with me, and I'll see you next Tuesday on the Acoustic Tuesday show. Cheers to you. Guitar Geeks Unite.